Good morning, you guys. Good to see you. For those of you that are new, my name is Mark, and it's good to have you here with us today. We've been actually doing a series called Lovestrong, and we've been taking a look at what it takes to make relationships work, and I think that's something that we all can learn from. How many of you have found that when you get into survival mode, when your stress levels get to be so great, when the pain level, when the stress, when the anxiety gets so great that you kind of like you consumed with your situation, and it's hard to really kind of think about other people. How many of you have found that to be true? How many of you have found that you get disconnected when you're under a lot of stress? You're like processing inside, you're carrying this inside, and suddenly the needs of other people around you and the sense of being in community and connected to other people just kind of goes out the window. Have you found that to be true? Right? One of the biggest things that threaten our relationships and threaten your vitality is how you deal with stress, and whether or not that stress disconnects you from people, or whether you allow God into that area of stress to do something that's going to benefit other people through even what you're going through. And that's kind of just a fundamental thing. We saw this, kind of being played out so much in 2008 when the economy crashed. When the economy crashed, I remember we felt like, man, we've got to do a lot of teaching on relationships in this time, because one of the things that we kept saying was, if there was a crack in your marriage or in your relationships, that when the economy crashed, it now became a full-blown chasm, right? I mean, for many of you, you experienced a time when your job was on the line, maybe your house was on the line, or you had people you were close to that their job was on the line or their house was on the line. How many of you experienced that? Saw that going on around you, had people that you know that were dealing with that, right? I mean, it touched a lot of people. And at that time, it was like we just began to see how stress was isolating people, how stress, even within a marriage, when a couple has a child that they're dealing with that is really sick, sometimes that sick child can actually be a source where if the couple doesn't pull together and understand how the stress is affecting them, it can begin to tear them apart. When guys are unemployed, a lot of times we don't realize how being unemployed is different for a man than it is for a woman. And because for guys, our jobs are a part of our identity. It's a part of our sense of well-being. It's what we were created for. And when we go through long periods of unemployment, that affects men differently. And oftentimes what can happen is it can cause us to pull inward and isolate. And it affects our closest relationships when it happens. I mean, stress can be a real killer when it comes to the area of relationships. And so it's so perfect that we're taking a look at James, because James, when he wrote this letter, was writing to people who were experiencing 2008, but that was their normal. You see, when they were raised as Jews, they went to the synagogue, they had their business relationships, they had all of those social connections, they were part of the fabric of the community. But when they began to say, you know what, I really believe that Jesus died for me. I believe that he was the Savior, the one that the Scriptures told us about, the one that the prophets had told us about. I believe he died and paid for my sins, and that he's been raised from the dead, and he's alive. And he's like drawing people to him and setting people free and bringing us into this relationship with him. And as they were saying those things, thinking everybody's getting it, right? We're all in this thing together. Some people were saying, no. If that's what you believe, then I'm not doing business with you anymore. If that's what you believe, then you're not coming to the synagogue anymore. If that's what you believe, then I'm dead to you. We have no relationship. We have nothing in common anymore. If that's what you believe, then we're not going to loan you money. I mean, it was like the losing of their homes, the losing of their relationships, the stress that they were under. What we saw in 2008, that was their normal. It happened all the time. And James is writing to the believers in that normal, in that place where stress is just taken over and where people isolate, and they're in survival mode now. And because they're in survival mode, they don't think about the people around them. They don't think about their purpose in life. They don't think about any of those things. They're just thinking about, how do I make it through the day? And what James does in a way that only James can is he connects the people of his day to their faith and helping them to understand how their faith connects to the circumstances that they're in and how to reconnect with God and connect with purpose in the midst of the stresses that they're going through. Now, this is important because for many of you, you're in the middle of something right now that is just earth-shaking. Some of you are going to face it. And the question is, when you face that and as you go through that, what is it that you're going to do to help you to get through that and have strong, healthy relationships as you get through it? Well, that's what James is going to talk about today. So James really gets to the heart of the matter in a hurry. James is always the one to make the rubber hit the road right away and doesn't leave room for any kind of fogginess. And so he starts out in James chapter 2 in verse 14, just boom, right there. He says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing," which would not have been unusual, right? Would not have been unusual to see somebody who had lost everything. He says, so when you see somebody that has lost everything, and you see that, how is it that when you just say to them, hey, goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing? He says, what good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds. It is dead, and he says this, we don't like it, but he just lays it on the line. He goes, it's useless. It's useless. And so here's the first thing that I want you to see and understand. I think this is what James is speaking to us about. He's saying the invitation to follow Christ has always been an invitation to make a difference, and it's never been anything else. We can have a warm, fuzzy feelings about our faith and the idea that God loves you so much that he would send his son Jesus to die on a cross to pay for your sins, and that God loves to forgive you, delights in forgiving you, that God delights in people when their hearts are open to him and he comes in and just begins to renovate their lives. The fact that is the faith that you have, he says this isn't a private matter. Now, up north in Wisconsin where I came from when we were raised, I remember they said there are always two things that you do not talk about. One of them is politics. What was the other one? Religion, right? It's a private matter. You don't talk about that. And James is saying, if your faith is just living inside of you and it's a private matter, it's so private, it's so way down deep inside that nobody can find it. He says, if it's not showing in your life, what good is it? The invitation to follow Christ has always been an invitation to make a difference. But here's why we hate this. And here's why we struggle with this. Because isn't it true that you would want to help, that you would want to get involved, but man, you've got enough problems of your own to deal with? Isn't it true? Does it irritate you that when I stand up and periodically when I talk about living a lifestyle of generosity, that just happens to be the week that you found out your kids need braces? Or that your car broke down, right? Or that an unexpected bill has arrived and it's like, hey, life didn't stop for me. I would love to get involved. I would love to help, but life has not stopped for me. Well, for them, the normal was, I've lost everything. And I'm barely making it. And James is saying, but the invitation to follow Christ has always been an invitation to make a difference. Because what you're doing when you help somebody, in spite of the fact that life has not slowed down for you and that the bills have not stopped coming and the kids have health issues, the fact that you're getting involved, what that does is you're letting people know that this amazing God who loves you, the one who is your source of abundance, the one that you say you trust with your life, the one that you look to for the one who will guide your career, who will make a way for you, that when you begin to get involved with somebody's life, even though your life is still having all the problems that it's having, what you're doing is you're letting people know, hey, I'm going to help you with what I have. I'll help you the way I can. Yeah, my life
I've got plenty of issues going on in my life, but I'm going to be okay because my life belongs to God. I've got a Father who's going to take care of me. I'm going to give it to you, and my Father will replace it. This is a thing, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to help you because I've got a Father who cares for me. And I just want you to get a glimpse of what it looks like to have a Father like that. And that's why I'm doing this. I just want in some way to help to ease the stress that you're under, even though I have my own stress. And he says, that's the way it's always been. The people of God have always been people that have been under stress. As a matter of fact, this was a big deal that Jesus, he had to let them know. He goes, look, I know in the past, when you believed in God, that meant it was just going to be all blessing. You were going to win all the victories. You're going to win all the battles. It was all going to be lopsided. He said, but there's a time that's coming when those of you that believe in me are going to find out that there's more trouble coming for you because you believe in me. How many of you have found that to be true? And he said, I want you to be realistic, because what my Father's going to do is he's going to demonstrate his grace and power through you, through the things that you go through that are difficult, and yet in spite of those things, you're not going to be in survival mode making it all about you, but you're still going to get involved with the needs of people around you. He said, that's how my Father's going to glorify himself. It's always been a call, an invitation to make a difference in somebody's life. You know, one of the things that in the past 5 years or so, one of these phrases that still kind of makes me feel funny. Do you guys remember the first time somebody looked at you when you said goodbye and they said, be safe? Anybody else, does anybody remember that? I can remember the first time I said goodbye to somebody and they said, be safe. And I'm like, okay. It just strikes me as being weird. Am I the only one that this strikes as being a weird thing? I know I kind of know, we say be safe, but what does be safe mean? Does it mean don't take any more risks? Does it mean, don't own a cat? Congratulations to you dozens of cat lovers that sent me video footage of Rocky saving the little boy from the dog attack. Maybe being safe for you means I have a cat, right? Okay, I'll concede there's one good cat in the world. I'll concede that. I'll give that to you. I mean, if we make it our goal to be safe, what does that look like? Does that mean don't give up driving, don't drive? I mean, let's stay at home and take up knitting, right? No, there's pointed needles. Be safe. What do we mean? What does it mean to be safe? I mean, can we raise the bar a little bit? Can we say something like, hey, be awesome? How about this? Be dangerous. Don't be safe, be dangerous. I mean that. Like, love people so radically, like there's no room for bigotry in the conversation. Be dangerous to somebody who's a bigot. Be dangerous to somebody who's so closed-minded about God because you love them so extravagantly and so generously. Be dangerous. Man, be dangerous to people because of the way that you care and the way that you love. Make anyone who wants to stay entrenched in fear feel unsafe because they feel like they're being called to something greater because of the way that you interact with them. Be dangerous. Don't tell me to be safe. I don't want to be safe. I don't want to make it our goal for us to be safe. And if there's anything that be safe communicates, it's this. Hey, why don't we say what we mean? I didn't say, I hope that, nothing disastrous happens in your life today. I hope that a meteorite doesn't fall on your house. Be safe. I mean, it's like this term that comes out of us, and if there's anything it communicates, it's this. It's, I have nothing to do with whatever happens in your life. Be safe. May the universe make it a good day for you somehow, nothing horrible. But see, what James would say is, there's no such thing as not seeing yourself as part of the solution to what's going on in people's lives. There's no, keep warm, be well fed, may food happen to you today. Be safe. James says that is a foreign concept. The idea that what happens in people's lives and what they're going through is something that you're divorced from. He says that's not what we're about. Because the invitation to follow Christ has always been an invitation to make a difference in somebody's life, even when life doesn't stop for you. And it's to help people to get a glimpse of the fact that there's a God. You have a Father who in the midst of your struggle, you have a confidence that things are going to work out. You have a confidence that he's going to come through for you. You have a confidence that he's going to supply for you. And so you're able to invest. You're able to be there for people. You're able to care because you're cared for by a heavenly Father. Not be safe, not be fed, not be warm, but hey, I can help you with that. I care. And the invitation that he gives to all of us is just that. It's, a lot of times we think of Christianity, think of Jesus, and his whole thing is, well, it's about going to heaven. But James is saying, it's not all about this. It's not just about what this warm, fuzzy thing that lives in your heart about, I'm going to go to heaven someday. He's like, no. It's not what it is. This is why Jesus said, pray like this. May your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is where? In heaven. He's saying, look, it's not about you going to heaven someday when you die. It's about you now, because of your relationship with God, bringing heaven to earth through the things that you do and the way that you relate and the way that you care. That people get a sense of what the love of God looks like because of the way that you love them. That people get a sense of the care of God for them because of the way that you care. See, it's not about this thing that happens, this eternal life thing that happens when you die. It's a quality of life that happens now because your Father has given you his Holy Spirit, and that Spirit of God lives inside of you. And the things that Jesus did are the things that you do. You cannot not care. Because following Jesus means I will do the things that Jesus did. I care. And there's no other faith than that. Now, people, of course, would argue and have probably good theological arguments. And James does what we see Paul do. Paul and James, they both write, arguments that people have thrown at them. And I think finally they go, I've had enough. I'm going to write this one down so that everybody gets this. And so one of the arguments probably was, hey, but I don't need to do good because I'm saved by faith, right? I don't have to work for God's love. I don't have to work to impress him. I don't have to do good deeds, to get to heaven because God already loves me and he forgives me, right? So I don't need to do that anymore. And so there's people that they don't know that yet and they do good deeds. And then there are those of us who really understand that we're saved by God's grace and we don't have to do good deeds anymore. And he says, now someone may argue, some people have faith, others have good deeds. It's one camp or the other, the good deeds camp and the faith camp. And he says, but I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. He says, look, it's kind of like this old preacher illustration where pastors would say this. If somebody were going to accuse you of being a Christian and they took you to court, would there be enough evidence against you to gain a conviction? What's the evidence of this beautiful thing that you believe? This beautiful thing that this grace of God, this love of God, this relationship with him. He's saying, is there enough evidence? Would people say, I know that person must be a follower of Jesus because of the kind of person they are and the way that they have helped me? So would there be enough evidence for that? And what James is saying is, you've got the argument wrong. The argument isn't, do you have faith or do you have deeds? The question is there evidence of your faith? Is there anything that shows that you have it? As for the person that says, well, I've got faith and all I know is that's the most important thing. James goes on to say this. He said, you say you have faith, for you believe there is one God. Good for you. And you can just sense his sarcasm. Way to go. Awesome. He goes, by the way, even demons believe this, and they tremble in terror. How foolish. How foolish. Here's the second thing I want you to see, is that the call to get involved in helping others is inescapable. James says, look, you have faith, you've got your theology right, great. Demons also know the truth. You proclaim Jesus as Lord and Savior, guess what? Demons know Jesus is the Lord and Savior too. He goes, you know what the difference between you and demons are? Demons are unwilling to follow God. But if you're a follower of Christ, then God will lead you. And it will be unescapable, the fact that what you believe so lives inside of you that you are involved in making a difference in the lives of people. You say you can't get away from it. And that if you're not, if you go, oh no, it's all about faith, you can have your theology, you can get people around you, and you can be the greatest Bible teacher that anybody has ever heard. And he says, but if there's nothing in your actions that shows what you believe, he said, then you really don't believe, because the very thing that you're teaching, you're not following. He says you can't separate the two. It is inescapable. Some people think of it this way. It's like, imagine that you're a tree, and whatever you're rooted in determines what fruit that you produce. So you know what I'm talking about? Like a person who's like rooted in bitterness, that comes out, right? I mean, when you're around somebody who is like locked up in bitterness and really angry, you can just kind of taste it when you're with them. You see it in their actions, you hear it in their attitudes. What he's saying, if what you're rooted in is the love of God, then the fruit that you're going to bear is going to look like the love of God. And everybody that gets around you and it tastes it will know exactly where it's coming from. It's that clear of a connection. It's that clear. And oftentimes, we'll go, oh, but I've got Jesus in my heart. And we celebrate that. I want to kind of stretch you a little bit. We go, oh, I've got Jesus in my heart. Did you pray? Do you have Jesus in your heart? Yes, I prayed and I have Jesus in my heart. We go, oh, I've got Jesus in my heart. Yeah, Jesus is in my heart. He's in my heart. And James will go, you know what? That's great. Here's the question. Is Jesus in your hands too? Does he have your hands? Like, do your hands get involved, and are they willing to get dirty? Do your hands kind of do the things that Jesus did? Are you there to bring help and healing to people? Are you there to bring support to people? Does he have your hands? And while we're at it, does Jesus he's got your heart? Great. That's awesome. Does he have your feet? Does he take you places that you would never choose on your own, but there's something inside of you that says, you need to go and do this. You need to get involved. You need to go to that neighbor's house. You need to go across the office that person and everybody avoids, and you need to find out what's going on in their life. Or you need to go to a neighborhood that you did not grow up in, and you need to begin to minister to people who need that kind of ministry. Or you need to get on a plane and go to another country just for a period of time. I need you to do that. Does Jesus have your heart? Great, he would say. The question is, does he have your hands? Does he have your feet? Does he have your checkbook? Do you help people in practical ways? Do you invest in lives where it's going to make a difference? Does Jesus have your heart? Great. Does he have your hands? Does he have your feet? Does he have your checkbook? Does Jesus have your schedule? Is there a place in your schedule where you go, I am serving. I'm here to help people know God. I'm here to point people to God. I'm here to invest in this person. I'm here to invest with these people to make a difference. It's like, he's saying, look, great, Jesus is in your heart. Is he in your hands? Is he in your feet? Is he in your checkbook? Is he in your schedule? Because if he's only in your heart, what good is that? What good is that? And there's that stretch. The cool thing is to see how people come alive when they really get this. When people begin to go, okay, I'm gonna let God stretch me. I'm gonna let God just stretch me. I'm going to begin to step out and just try some things. Here's some things that we've been involved in, just to kind of give you a picture, things that we've talked about. Here's outreaches that we do in Palmetto. Just before Easter, we did 3 Saturday morning outreaches. This is just 3. During those 3 Saturday mornings, we had 100 volunteers distributing 14,000 pounds of food to over 240 families. Now, that's awesome. And for many of those people, they were like, I've never done this before. I've never done it. And it's like, but you know who brought them there? Jesus living inside of them brought them there. And suddenly they're experiencing. One of our friends, who when she was on the outreach, a little girl looked at her and said, "You're coming back, right?" Like that's all I needed to hear. It just makes a difference in people's lives when you do that. When was the last time you let God stretch you? When was the last time you let him make you uncomfortable, where you had to rely on him? When was the last time you did that? You see, that's supposed to be the normal. Here's another thing that we do every year. We did it last year. Went to the Dominican Republic. Last year when we did this, we served 330 patients, gave away 200 pairs of sunglasses. 26 people said, "I want your God." 1,250 widows and orphans were fed. 160 glasses were given. 1 person was healed of cataracts. It was just God stuff, right? You see what I'm doing? Just trying to open up your heart. When was the last time you let God make you feel uncomfortable? Does he have your heart? Great. You got Jesus in your heart? Great. The question is, does he have your hands? Does he have your feet? Does he have your checkbook? Does he have your schedule? People literally took their own vacation time, paid for the trip themselves, and went and just served. And you know what they said when they came back? I was the one that got blessed. I'll explain why that happens in a little bit. You know, we go now into Palmetto. We're actually partnering with several other churches, and we're there every 2nd and 4th Saturday, serving, loving, helping people to see what God looks like. Man, have you ever done that? You ought to try it. You ought to join us. It's absolutely amazing. You can fill out your Connect card with your name and number and go, hey, I want to be a part of that outreach. Turn it in at the guest services or turn that in to drop it in a Dropbox. You know, in a few weeks, Dr. Joe Pecoraro on June 1st, 2 weeks from now, he's going to be speaking right here in the sanctuary after this service for those that are interested in going to the Dominican Republic. And, you know, some of you, you've had a calling from God to do something like that, and every year you put it off. Every year something seems to come up. But God is saying, I want you to go even though life isn't stopping for you. Just let me do something through you. Jesus wants to be in your heart, but that's got to come out. That's got to come out. Here's what he goes on to say. Take a look. James says, can't you see that faith without good deeds, I hate this, he says it, but he means it. Faith without good deeds is what? Useless. He said it. Don't you remember? Now here's what he's going to do. He's going to appeal to the Jews and help them to understand the greatest example that they'd ever seen of how actions make a difference. He said, don't you remember that our ancestor Abraham was shown to be right with God by his actions when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see, his faith and his actions worked what? Together. His actions made his faith what? Complete. And so it happened just as the scriptures say. Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called a friend of God. So you see, we are shown to be right with God by what we do, and not by just what lives inside of you, not by faith alone. Now here's the picture. Abraham had been chosen by God to follow him. And Abraham, as he learned to walk with God, God had declared him early on, hey, you are good, you are righteous, because you believe in me, because you're trusting me.
But Abraham did not know that God could be fully trusted, and so Abraham would get into trouble, and then he would rely upon his own human reasoning to try and figure a way out. So he ends up in Egypt. There's a famine. His wife is a fox, and he's afraid Pharaoh is going to want him killed to get her, and so he lies and says, okay, you're going to be my sister. Let's tell him you're my sister. And all these things happen, and then God warns Pharaoh not to touch her, and all this stuff happens. And what he's learning is, every time I get into trouble, I try to come up with my own solution, and it's a disaster, but God always rescues me anyway. And that what God says he's going to do, he's going to do. And he learns this time and time and time again. You see him kind of growing in his process of faith. And what finally happens is this. God says, take your son Isaac, the one that I promised to give you, the one who's a miracle because you're too old and your wife is too old to have a baby, but she did anyway. And I want you to kill him. Now, what happened at that moment, scriptures tell us, is that Abraham thought about it. And he's thinking, okay, you said that I was going to be the father of many nations, that I was going to have a lot of descendants, and I've got one son. So if I put him on an altar and kill him, I know that you're going to keep your word because you've showed me time and time and time again that you always keep your promise. So if I kill him, the only way that you're going to be able to keep your promise is if you raise him from the dead. Okay, that works. And he literally is ready to offer his son, and then God stops him, says, that's all I needed to know. You trust me to that extent. Now here's what Abraham could not know. That what God was doing through his simple obedience was painting a picture of a God who would one day send his son and willingly sacrifice his son, and that his son would be raised from the dead. What Abraham could not know was that God, through Abraham, through his simple obedience, was giving revelation to everybody around him of a plan of God and how that plan would apply in their own lives. And see, for the Jews, this was big. And what he's saying is, look, you just do what God wants you to do, and God will take care of the rest. Here's the point. Do what only you can do, and God will do what only he can do. Now, that's not new. But that's what he's saying. And he says, look, there's this thing. Faith and actions have to work together. Actions make faith complete. That's how this works. Now, I've got this lamp. This is my favorite lamp, by the way. I know it sounds weird, but it is my favorite lamp. I think this is a cool lamp, and I'll tell you why it's a cool lamp. Because I got to design the room that it's in. Marie and I, we picked different rooms. She got to design a kitchen and a living room. I got to design the room in front. And so when you come into my room, excuse me, it's got these cool gray walls in there. I've got all the photographs are black and white in there, and I've got pictures of antique motorcycle racers from the 1915 and 1925 range on their board track racers on the wall, and I thought this lamp goes perfectly in a room like that. Now, I love this lamp. I think it is cool. This lamp I have a warm and fuzzy relationship with. I really like this lamp. I just think you won't find that lamp. It's hard to find. It's cool. But it doesn't work. I mean, I can talk about this lamp all day long, and I can yell at this thing and hope it comes on, but it just can't do anything. Now, in order for this lamp to be able to work, there is something that I have to do with this lamp. Now, this lamp, if you would, represents your belief. It's beautiful. There's something about your faith that is absolutely captivating. But if nobody gets the benefit of it, it really doesn't matter. This cord represents action, what you do with what you believe. And what James is saying is this. He's saying, look, your faith is made complete with your actions. As long as you have a warm, fuzzy faith and Jesus lives in your heart, but there's nothing that you're doing for other people to see it, he says, then it's not working right now. It's not useful for anybody.
It's like what I want to see, James is saying, what I want to see is for God's power to flow in your life. And I know that life is hard. I know that circumstances have made you isolate. I know that you're like, when I just have more, I can help somebody. When I just have more time, I can help somebody. He's like, I know that. I know that that's what life is like. I know that you've been kicked out of synagogues. I know that you've lost your businesses. I know that you've lost your homes. But people around you are going hungry. And people around you need clothing. And you've got a Father who will take care of you, but they don't know him because you're not putting your faith and your actions together. And when you take what you say you believe and you begin to step out in faith, there is something that happens. When you look at children and you go, oh, children, man, it breaks my heart what children are facing in this world today. Man, it's a different world that kids are growing up in, isn't it? I mean, it is nothing like the world that many of us knew. And you can hold that in your heart with your faith. It's like, that's great, but the question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you doing to make a difference in the lives of children? Is it showing? You go, oh, teenagers, can you imagine what it's like to grow up in this world with the internet and with everything unfiltered being thrown at you? And it breaks your heart what they're going through. And, oh, you carry that in your heart. That's great. But what actions are you taking that's going to make a difference in the life of a teenager? And, yeah, you have all this beauty inside of you. But he says what needs to happen is you take what you believe, and when you connect it with action, suddenly the lights come on for a lot of people. And now they're able to gain the benefit of that thing that lives inside of you that's been radiating in here but not anywhere else. And now people are able to see what it is that you believe because it's coming out in your actions. And the beauty of God, the love of God, the grace of God that lives inside of you suddenly is on display where people are seeing God and how he lives inside of you and how it makes such a difference inside of you. And I just want to challenge you. I think that James is challenging all of us. And he's saying, look, you have so many beautiful things that's in your heart, things that you care deeply about. But it's got to get out. And you've got to get actively involved in somehow, some way for that light that God wants to produce through you to be able to radiate into the lives of other people. Because if you don't, it's a useless lamp. It just doesn't matter. But when you're willing to take that step and go, God, you know what? I care about kids. I don't even know where to begin. Okay, I'll get involved in children's ministry. Great. I'm going to serve there. Boom. All of a sudden the kids go, wow. God, you know what? I care about students. They matter so much. Now what I'm going to do, God, I'm going to get involved with students. And I'm going to, whether it's mentoring, leading a small group, whatever it is, and all of a sudden, boom, students see, oh, that's what God looks like. God, I'm going to get involved with outreach. I want to be a part of feeding people. I want to be a part of just giving them hope. Okay, you're stretching me. You're stretching me. Oh, and they go, that's what God looks like. I see now. And there's sound effects that go with it too. Beautiful. Ding. Right? Now here's the thing. Think about this. What's happening when I plug this lamp into this cord? There is electricity. There's literally power that flows through the action that connects my action with my belief. There's literally power that flows in order for that radiance to take place. In the same way, the beauty of what you believe about God, this relationship that you have with him, when you connect it with action, the power of God flows through your simple willingness to do what only you can do. Then God does what only God can do. There is something supernatural that happens through the simplest acts of obedience. That when you connect what you believe and the way that you love with helping people and taking action, the power of God flows. And I can tell you this, that when you feel like so weighed down by your problems, when you feel so overwhelmed by what it is that you're going through, if you're willing to allow God to take you to a place where you begin to help other people, where you begin to care about other people, where you say, God, these are my problems, you take care of my problems, you use me to help that person take care of their problem. I will be there for them. When you do that, the power is flowing through you. You're experiencing something about God that you wouldn't have experienced if you did this. There is something that begins to happen inside of you that changes you, that energizes you, that empowers you. There's something that happens in you that suddenly your own problems and your own circumstances don't weigh nearly as much as they did before. Because what you're doing is you're living right in that place where the power of God flows. And the radiance of who he is comes through you in the simplicity of being willing to care beyond your own circumstances and beyond your own family. You know, a lot of times we go, well, I'm taking care of my family. You know, that is assumed in scriptures that you'll do that. What the calling is it's to care beyond those around you. Now, here's one of the things. We often celebrate things, and I don't think James would celebrate the same way that we celebrate. What we do is we'll say, hey, how many people, stood up and said, I want to place my faith in Jesus? We'll go, oh, Easter, 150, woohoo! We'll celebrate that. Well, how many people got baptized last year? Man, we had like 100 people that got baptized last year. Woohoo! And see, we get all excited about that. But James is he comes from a different place. Because what James knows is that this is what God is looking for. And what James would say is this. He'd go, okay, you placed your faith in Christ, great. You got baptized, okay, that's really good. Here's my question for you. How many of you have let God use your hands and you've gotten involved in the kind of situations that you wouldn't have gotten involved in before because now God's living inside you? And he'd go, yeah, woohoo, that's the way to go. He'd say, hey, how many of you, okay, you got baptized, great, okay, yeah, that's cool. You trusted Jesus, okay, that's cool. But let me ask you a question. So how many of you have now let Jesus have your feet too, not just your heart, but your feet, and you gone to places you went, I never thought I'd be here. I never thought I'd go to the Dominican Republic. I've never cared about people in Palmetto. I've never cared about these things. But man, I'm going. It's like, wow, this power is flowing. James would be going, woohoo, awesome, you get it. Or how many of you, okay, Jesus is in your heart? Okay, that's really cool. But how many of you learn to invest in people's lives? How many of you in the spite of your own issues and own stuff that you're working through, you said, you know what, other people need this. I know God's going to supply for me. I know he's going to take care of me, but I want to help other people. And it's shown up in your checkbook. For how many of you it's shown up in your schedule? Because what he would do is he'd say, man, if that's happening in your life, that's what we got to celebrate, because that's what faith looks like. That's what this is all about. And James would be going, this is it. You get it. You get it. If you're doing that, you get it. Now, I want to tell you something. We're here really to just help you. We're here to help you fulfill the calling that God has on your life. We want you to experience the kind of fulfillment that people who are plugging into God like that experience all the time. So that's why we offer things like our growth track. Our growth track is simply, it's an on-ramp to help you. If you go, I don't even know where to begin. Man, in growth track, it's all about helping you to discover the vision that God has for your life and how to carry that out. It's like today we're doing 301, which is all about, okay, here's how you're wired. Let's look at how you're wired. And here's how you're wired can make a difference in the world. It's all about that. That's growth track. And if you've never if maybe you felt, oh, you know what? I'm too inadequate. Can't get involved. I just, not me. I'm just too inadequate. You know what? Think about that. When you don't get involved because you feel like you're inadequate, well, I'm not trained. I don't know how to care about those people. I don't know how to do this. You're not really making a statement about you. You're really making a statement about God. What God is saying is, don't you think I'm big enough? Do you think I'm strong enough? Do you think I'm powerful enough to work through you to change somebody's life, you just do what only you can do, and I will do what only I can do. That's how it works. It's not about you being adequate. It's about me being powerful and being God. That's what it's about. And for some of you, maybe this is that time. You've never just gotten on the on-ramp and said, okay, how do I do this in a practical way? Sign up for Growth Track. Register for it, turn that in at guest services, put it in the drop boxes. Maybe for some of you, this is the year to go to the Dominican Republic. You feel like God has been calling you for some time, and every year you hope that if you just delay getting your passport enough, it'll go, oh, it's too late again. August, the first week in August is when we're going. 2 weeks from tonight, Joe Pecoraro is going to share about that trip. That trip will change your life. But you've got to be willing to act upon the things that God has put in your heart. And when you do, everybody wins. Everybody wins. You win, the people around you win, and God wins in all of it. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for, God, just the way that you make so incredibly practical, inescapably practical, that the faith that you've given us is not a private matter. And that there are relationships, God, that have just been suffering because people have gone into survival mode. But Lord, you want to lift people above survival mode. And you want to demonstrate your power in a way that in the midst of what they're going through, that you will show up with power. And that you will change lives through them, and that even through the struggles that they carry, that you will so lead them through it, that those struggles will count for the benefit of other people because of the encouragement and the things that we've learned along the way. We've learned we can trust you completely. So, Father, for those who need to take steps of faith, God, we're just telling you, our hearts are open. We want to live wide open, God. We want to take that faith that we believe. We don't just want you in our hearts. We want you in our hands. We want you in our feet, taking us where we wouldn't go. In our checkbook, multiplying the impact of our money in the lives of people who have none. And taking time out of our schedule to invest in the lives of others in a way that when we get to the end of this life, we'll be able to look back and know that it's been a whole life that's made a difference. God, thank you. Heal us, heal our relationships, and the way that we live our faith. In Jesus' name.